Well, no crap, lady. What's it look like? I'm ordering a pizza.
It's a great line. That's a great line.
It was a quote from John McClane from Die Hard, the Christmas classic everyone loves.
All right, guys. It is episode 26.
26. What goes with 26?
Let's see. 26. Can't you rent a car after 25? Isn't that when you can start renting a car?
You can't. Yeah.
What else happens at 26? That's when I started to get a little more cynical, you know.
And that's also when Jordan Peele's new movie's coming out.
Oh, yeah. Nice. All right. Welcome, everyone. If you're joining us on YouTube or Spotify, please leave us any comments, ratings, things like that.
Hate mail.
We'll take it all.
Who are you?
My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Surgator Productions.
And yeah, we're trying to squeeze in as much Christmas content as we can. Maybe if we have time to do a few more after this, we can. But we'll see.
Okay.
Now, the movie we are talking about is widely regarded as one of the best action movies of all time. And I will fully agree to that in every way. However, the conversation I would like to focus on in the beginning is people don't want to classify this as a Christmas movie, yet I'm in the opinion that this very much is a Christmas movie. Now, I've seen some arguments being portrayed online that do make a lot of sense. And one of the things I will mention is what quantifies a Christmas movie. For me, I feel like if Christmas is essential to the plot, then it's a Christmas movie. If you take Christmas out of the movie and the plot simply doesn't work, then okay, maybe you don't have a Christmas movie. However, I think this very much is in that sense. For instance, the Nakatomi building is completely empty because it is Christmas time and it is a Christmas party. If you take that out, the plot and when they were planning on taking over this building simply doesn't work. You know, they waited specifically for this time. And throughout the movie, they bring up Christmas a lot. You know, they very much talk that this is the time, this is in season. And again, to me, like that says a lot. And of course, at the end, a Christmas song starts playing. So, I mean, again, you have Christmas essential to the plot. You have multiple times throughout the movie Christmas being brought up. Not only to mention does this movie center around family, a man doing what he can to save his family. How many other Christmas movies are about family? A lot of them. And it has Christmas music in the movie. I'm sorry, those are all just that's it. Like that literally is it. I mean, Wally, do you have a different take on that?
No, I feel like Christmas movies, I feel like what classifies as a Christmas film for me is like, is it set during Christmas and are they making references to Christmas?
Yeah.
And this film does it like throughout and it's great. Mm-hmm. And I love the little Christmas rap song that you hear at the beginning with the limo driver.
Yeah.
He's all, what kind of he's all, can you play some Christmas music? He's all, this is a Christmas song. Anyways, but yeah, that I feel like it's pretty simple for me. It's like, does it reference Christmas and is it set during Christmas?
Exactly.
You know, is it set during the holidays?
Yeah. All right, guys, there's a lot I want to talk about this movie. I probably won't go scene for scene like some of my other reviews, just for time length. However, we're starting off right away. One of the biggest pluses of this movie is the story and the writing. You have a very simple setup that can just be explained in 2 sentences. You have a cop visiting his family for Christmas, and he attends a holiday party, and at that holiday party, a terrorist organization takes over the building that he and his wife are in, and basically turns into a game of cat and mouse between John McClane and the terrorist organization.
Hans Gruber.
And because of that, and you're able to explain it super, super well in such a short sentence, log line type of thing, it really can get a lot of people invested right away. This movie is very smart in that way. And the setup is super simple. There's nothing too crazy going on. And anything that is super crazy or goes for it, I feel like is
surprisingly grounded. It doesn't feel too over the top.
Yeah. And it goes in some humor directions, things like that. So we'll get into it. The way this story unfolds, to me, is just the pinnacle of how you would want to write an action movie. Again, the setup is simple, yet the story goes left. It goes right in ways that you are just not ready for, and you're just constantly being surprised by the directions this story goes in, I could read you that simple setup and you feel like you may understand the movie and how it's going to unfold. Yet this movie constantly surprises you with the way it goes, with the way these characters are working out this situation, with the way the adversaries are responding to everything, and man, is it just gripping. Like, you are just totally invested. This movie surprised me so much. And again, I hadn't seen this movie until after I had seen a lot of other action movie staples, okay? Like Terminator 2, like the Bourne trilogy, like the John Wick movies. Very much I'd consider a lot of those action movie staples, Alien, all that. Yet when I went back to watch this movie, this was less than 10 years ago when I first saw it, I was still being surprised by the plot and everything, As much as I had seen action movies and known so much about them, when I went back to watch this movie, I was like, damn, this thing is still surprising me. And this came out however long ago, And I think that shows how well it was written. And people were probably like, damn, how do we surpass that after this movie came out? One of the biggest plus sides, you got Bruce Willis in this. Obviously now he's probably known for those more action type of roles. However, at the time, this was kind of unheard of to have like just an average guy be your action hero,
Yeah. Compared to like a Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You had all these big guys, these, action heroes. You had people who fit that role. This one goes for nope, this is just an ordinary guy in an impossible situation, This could be any one of us, and there's a lot of great character moments in this movie that really help you feel that this guy isn't he knows everything and he's got this whole situation solved. Sometimes nowadays when I watch action movies, I do kind of miss this, It's great. It's great seeing John Wick rip to shreds of millions of people, headshots, killing them all. But eventually at some point I'm like, this guy's really overpowered. This guy's God mode right OP. Now. Exactly. But in this movie, you got a guy literally escaping situations by the skin of his teeth. Does he get out of some of these situations? Like, he is so close to dying. Yeah. And not only that, he's missing shots. He's falling to the ground. He gets beaten up. He gets bloodied. By the end of this movie, you're just like, damn, this guy barely made it through this situation, And it has that triumphant feel that I feel like is missing in like a John Wick, in a, Bourne trilogy. I feel like those are very much kind of God mode kind of heroes, which is great. It's entertaining. I'm not trying to knock it in any way, but man, watching this movie, I'm like, they nailed it. This guy just feels like your average guy, Wallied, how are you thinking in terms of that situation?
The thing I love a lot about John McClane, and especially noticing it this time around, was he is a really great problem solver, because like the film mentions, he's a cop from New York, and I love that the film throughout, I love like seeing like if whether or not he's gonna make it out alive or not, especially like the thing with the van, he holds like the strap of like the gun, basically, or he literally gets like glass on his like feet, and he still just bandages it up with like a paper towel or something like that, And I love just throughout, I love how like even through like the struggles and everything, he's still able to like get out of these situations or come up with like new ideas of how to like get rid of these terrorists.
Yeah.
And that's something I think I really loved a lot about the film, was like it kept you guessing of whether or not he, like the stakes being super high and whether or not he was going to get out of these situations or not.
Yeah. I really love the interpretation or portrayal that John McClane is literally the only hope these people have.
Yeah.
Because pretty soon the cops eventually show up, FBI, things like that, and you start to realize like they're not inside the building. They don't know what's going on. John McClane is the one piecing together everything, feeding them information, and we get this great back and forth between John McClane and this cop on the ground.
Al.
Yeah, Al. That is just some really great stuff is going on. Their conversations, their back and forth is entertaining. And it's so funny. It's like when the movie ends, you just realize these guys have not actually met, know? And that's such a smart way to have their back and forth is over talking through this radio and things like that. And the revealing of information. And there are some emotional beats too that this movie goes for that is it works,
It's surprising for sure, especially for a movie like this too.
Yeah. Again, just simply talking about the plot, you would think this movie would be pretty straightforward, yet it's not. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things is obviously we mentioned John McClane, how smart he is. He's thinking on his toes. He's coming up with answers as he goes along, and that's great. But you have the perfect opposition for him in Hans Gruber. Amazing villain. Like, this guy has to be in some of the best movie villains of all time.
He's probably one of my favorite movie villains ever.
And he's just, he's the same way as John McClane. They're both trying to outsmart each other in this chess game, of I got to make sacrifices here if I want to win, things like that. And their back and forth is just amazing.
Incredible.
And,
I love how calm and collected he is too, because especially for a movie like this, you could imagine the guy being like a psycho and over the top, but I love just how like kind of sophisticated he is with like all of the choices that he makes throughout the film.
Exactly.
And even his first interaction with John McClane, I thought was just like incredible, where he pretends to be like one of the hostages.
Yeah.
I love that whole interaction that they have, I just really just kept me on like the edge of my seat the entire time. And it easily is one of the best Dutch angle shots I've seen in any film,
Yeah. I feel like this movie kind of helped bring action films into a new era. I feel like before that, again, we had the by the numbers action hero, and villain, and I feel like this movie really helped showing that there's a different way you can go about this. You don't never do these characters feel like you're watching 007 Bond movie, with the over the top villains, the basically super villains. I'll just kind of say
pretty
that.
much, yeah. Which could work sometimes, but I feel like with this film, I think the grounded nature works really well. And putting it in that kind of realistic, somewhat direction, I think fits perfectly with the film they were trying to make.
It really does, and again, the back and forth, the way the story goes and directions you aren't thinking. Like, never at a point when I was hearing about this movie, I saw posters, things like that, did I think, oh yeah, throughout this movie, your main action hero isn't going to have shoes on. Like, I'm like, holy shit. Like, when I found that out, I'm like, damn, that would fucking suck. And that's great. That's like a great thing to have your hero going throughout this situation. There are those moments that I feel like a normal action movie wouldn't really show. This movie chooses to show some of the stuff that I feel like a standard action movie would probably skip over, especially now, like, again, like there are human moments like him bandaging up his feet, him, working out the situation, him talking on the phone with the police. It's not working in his favor.
Yeah.
And that's great. Like a lot of the stuff in this movie doesn't really work in his favor. He is caught off guard multiple times. He is about 2 seconds away from dying multiple times, yet he figures it out. He works through it. And again, it goes in those directions you aren't thinking. Like, never at a point watching this movie did I think you'd have your main hero and villain meet up. And that happens in this movie. And when that happened, man, was I on the edge of my seat. There's a scene where Hans Gruber goes up to the roof and he runs into John McClane. And Hans Gruber was smart enough to act like an American and try to outsmart him. And to me, I'm like, wow, that is so interesting. These guys have literally been hunting each other this whole time. And they wrote in the story that we're going to have them meet and they don't know who they are.
Yeah.
That to me is amazing. That's such a smart way to take that story, because in a very claustrophobic kind of setting, you would think that they would kind of expend all of their options very fast. But man, this movie proves to you that nope, there's lefts, there's rights, there's subversions. You really don't know what you're in for, and that to me is a great writing. How did you feel, Wallied? Like, are you someone who watched a lot of action movies before you had seen this movie, or was this kind of a start for you?
Yeah, so I had seen a lot of action films through my dad, actually. I was kind of introduced to some of the good ones, but also some of like the not so good ones and some of the more okay ones. So seeing this one for the first time in high school, I was kind of surprised how much it was different compared to like other action films. I guess when I went into it, I was expecting it to be super crazy and over the top, because I know like some of the Die Hard sequels are a bit more like that, so I was kind of expecting this was going to be the same thing, but I was just very surprised just how grounded it was. I was surprised how slow paced it was too. It took its time with building tension and building up like a lot of the action sequences in the film. And I feel like that works really well, especially because it's like, it makes it much more satisfying to watch, especially when you do get to those action sequences and everything, I was just kind of surprised about that watching it throughout. I was just like, wow, there's a lot of buildup in this, but it all explodes into fireworks by then, which I loved.
Some of my favorite things probably go unnoticed to most people. I get a lot of entertainment out of villains and the way they're portrayed. Obviously, Hans Gruber, very collected. He has a clean look to him, very to the point. However, with the people surrounding him, it's so funny. Like, there's these two guys and they have like long straightened hair. Like they look like Fabio. And they're running around with machine guns and stuff. And I don't know why. I just thought it was so funny. I was laughing, like seeing some of these guys. Granted, I know it's probably just a product of the time period. That probably was normal at the time.
Sure, yeah.
But watching it in this lens is just like, man, that is funny. Like seeing these guys run around with they look like they're in a L'Oreal commercial with their long hair. And I don't know why. I just thought it was hilarious. But again, like that really speaks to like the charm of this movie, the cleverness of it. There's even like an interesting kind of side plot with one of the villains. Early on, his brother dies, and you kind of get like this small kind of like revenge story that this guy's pissed off, And
understandably so too.
And there's real emotions and stakes on the table for him. And for an action movie to kind of do that with not your main villain is interesting, because I feel like most of the time these guys are just kind of the cannon fodder. They're the guys who get shot, they die, and that's
pretty
it.
one-dimensional. Yeah.
That really kind of added a different side to these kind of low level characters, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And the cop, Al, he has this
He's
great story. He's just kind of a desk cop who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, yet he's worked the force before, and he's very quickly realizes that John McClane has to be a cop, you know?
Yeah.
And there's this great exchange where we find out that Al works the desk because he made a mistake at one point, and he ended up taking the life of a kid, and he's haunted by that. Again, pretty by the numbers kind of action movie when it's kind of sold to you, yet it adds that layer to these guys being cops, you know?
Yeah.
What if you made the mistakes? You know, what if you accidentally did things wrong? And that emotional beat does hit pretty well. And again, I never expected that to happen.
And I think too, also what works about it is that like both Al and John McClane are pretty broken, you know, in different ways. You know, John doesn't have like the best family life, and then Al is kind of like still trying to learn from his mistake. He's trying to go through that process of trying to get over that pretty much, you know. And I think when their relationship forms throughout the film, I think that kind of shows you like these two broken characters coming together, you know, in a bit more of like a crazy situation, yes, but I think that kind of works a lot about their relationship is that they have a lot of things going on.
Again, it's a side of this movie that I didn't think would happen, and in retrospect, it adds to the movie. It doesn't feel left of field. It nestles in really well with everything else going on. And that is very surprising because, again, the situation is not normal, you know?
Yeah.
This is a terrorist organization taking over a building, trying to get money out of it, you know?
Yeah.
And there's so many moments that just really catch you off guard. There's a lot of great lines in this movie, too. At one point, John McClane, he has a gun to one of the guy's heads, and the guy's like, "You're a policeman. There are rules for policemen." And John McClane's like, "Yeah, that's what my captain keeps telling me." John McClane, I feel like this movie had to usher in kind of the action one-liner, and there's a bunch of them in this movie.
Yeah, this has some of the funniest one-liners I think I've seen in not only just any action movie, but probably just in any movie in general.
And in one of the moments where I was like, damn, is this story going to go that far? Like Hans Gruber, like he's talking to the police and he's trying to buy time because the cops are there. And he's like, gets on the radio and he's like, he realizes he needs more time. He needs these guys to kind of have a goal because they're starting to figure out what they're doing there. So then he says, there are these organizations that are imprisoned around the world that he wants released. And he starts reading them off. It's like the Asian Dawn department. There's all these different like terrorist organizations that he says. And then one of the guys, when he was on the radio, he's all Asian Dawn. And then Hans Gruber goes off the radio and he's like, "I read about them in Time magazine." And I'm like, that's hilarious. Like that, like
that one caught me off guard for sure.
And that was the thing. I was like, oh damn, are they really after these things? And then Hans Gruber is very smart to just kind of give them a goal, you know. Again, there's great lines like that. There's a line later on where he's fighting one of these guys, and by this point, John McClane is just, I can't imagine how he must be feeling. He must be so tired, and he's bleeding out of his feet. He's fighting this guy, and he's a motherfucker, I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna cook you, and I'm gonna eat you. It's just like, he's probably pushed to like his absolute limits, and in that moment, he's just trying to fight. Like, there's so many great moments like that, and again, like, I feel like this movie probably did invent the action one-liner. Like, this guy says so many of them, and 9 times out of 10, they just work, and they're great.
Yeah.
It
definitely is influential in that sense.
Yeah.
Pioneered that kind of one-liner thing.
Exactly. You know? The way the story unfolds, the surprises it goes for, I really can't recommend it if you're not into action movies. I feel like this would be a very great starter. I feel like John McClane is really relatable. His family's angle is relatable. There's even a storyline about the news trying to uncover this whole story, and even that's entertaining.
Yeah. And they go interview like the kids at one point. I was like, damn, okay. Jeez.
I know. They show this movie from all the different angles, the cops on the ground, the villains, the hostages. Like they really had such a limited kind of scope, but I feel like they knew which were the right points to focus on.
Yeah, and none of it feels underdeveloped, surprisingly, considering you're following like all of these different stories like at the same time. You know, it feels just like super perfect in that sense, honestly.
If I had any real complaints about this movie, it probably would be in the music department. I wish we had a kind of good score or recognizable theme for John McClane. Some of the music in it is just not as well as I think it could have been, which is a shame.
Something that I think could have been better, though, honestly, is if they just made like a Christmas soundtrack and have that juxtaposed over like the action scenes, or just over like the more intense scenes in the film. I think that would have been a lot better. And really get that whole Christmas thing. Even more.
That would have been great. Probably one of my only few complaints. I think the acting in this movie is great. Some of it is over the top. Some of it's more restrained.
Probably one of the best Bruce Willis performances I've seen for sure.
Yeah. And it all just comes together really well. And you're given a unique Christmas present that you weren't expecting. I don't know. Like it was so surprising again to watch this movie after all the action movies I had seen, after, you know, the iconic stuff I've seen, and to watch this and just be surprised is a big statement. And I know we're in the modern era of action movies, and that's fine. However, I would like us to kind of revisit a story like this at some point. Not like a remake, but something in the same vein of just like an average person, you know, and
skyscraper, baby. Just kidding.
God, so many times I see like modern action movies, and they try to do that more restrained approach, and then they get someone like Michael Bay to direct it, and I'm like, now you kind of removed all the groundedness because
it's over the top.
Michael Bay does not do groundedness very well. But I would like to see a modern interpretation of a story like this, you know, just an average person in an impossible situation. How do they handle it? Because this movie is really a pioneer for its time, you know, and I feel like we've gotten to the point where we went on the other side of the scale, you know, to the overpowered action hero, and it's great. I love it, but I would like to kind of go back to the other side a little bit. You know?
Yeah, I think you could fit it perfectly with like a bottle film type of thing.
Yeah, and
if done right, but yeah.
And this movie, like, it has action set pieces, but they're not too drawn out. They don't go on for too long. They're like they happen and then they're done. You know. So yeah, I that's just something that I notice a lot with this movie. But again, maybe it is that situation of, damn, we made something so good that we don't know how to do something like that again, you know?
Yeah, it's almost that like lightning in a bottle type of thing. You know, you can't really capture that again.
Yeah. But definitely recommend checking it out, guys. Like it's talked about this long for a reason.
Yeah.
This is worth your time. It is worth the amount of time you want to give it. Like, you really won't be disappointed. Guaranteed a lot of you people have already seen it. Guarantee this is already on your list. But if you're like me and it went under the radar for some reason, check it out. I don't know why I didn't see this movie until I was in high school. Like, my dad showed me a lot of action movies, but for some reason this one never really came up. And I just remember hearing about it for so long. And then one day I was at, Best Buy, and I saw it and I was like, I'm just going to watch it. I'm going to buy it because I've just heard so much at this point. And I was fully ready to be like, it was okay, but it's not that great. And again, I was just surprised.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. guess score-wise, I definitely would be around like a 9 out of 10, maybe like an 8.5.
Okay.
I think this is absolutely amazing. Again, some of my faults with it, I wish there was a great score. Wish there was a great theme. I wish John McClane had his action hero theme, because again, as memorable as some of the lines, the direction in this movie, the acting, the theme, the music doesn't really come up besides the Christmas song at the end. I thought that was a great way to end it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really my only complaint. And again, some people might say a whole point just for music. Music's a big thing for me in movies.
It is too,
especially in action movies. You want to hear that, you know.
I don't want to hear that boom, 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 boom.
Or to have the villain have their theme, you know, things like that. But I guess, Wallied, what are you thinking? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I really loved this film overall. I would just say a few complaints that I had with it was just the music. I think could have been a lot better. I do kind of wish it had like a bit more of a conclusive ending, because it just does end with like, oh, he goes with his wife.
Home, yeah.
I did at least want to get to see him like interact with his kids, or at least spend like the day with them on like Christmas Day, even if it's like short. I just kind of wish the ending was a bit more conclusive. But yeah, I would just say those are my only two downsides. And then I guess Ellis was kind of a little annoying.
Oh yeah, he was annoying.
He's kind of annoying, though. But luckily enough, he doesn't take up much of the movie, so it's not really like that big of a complaint. But I would just say those are my only complaints with the film. But yeah, this was a big surprise. I really loved this a lot. I love how it blends being action with some really good drama, but also some really funny comedy too, with the one-liners, with just even the villain. You know, I love just their interactions that they have throughout. I thought fit really well with the film.
Yeah.
And I just loved like the whole Christmas aspect of the film. I think it works well because it's like he's even fighting for something for his family, you know, around that time, you know. And I think it works really, really well. Great acting, great action, just an overall really fun time. I give it an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say an 8 out of 10 from me.
Check it out if you guys haven't seen it yet. It really is worth your time. It goes in directions you aren't thinking. And there's a reason it is talked about for so long. Very unfortunate. Alan Rickman ended up passing away. He gives such a great performance in this movie. Same with Bruce Willis. It is unfortunate to hear about his situation now. But oh man, will he always be held as in such high regard thanks to this movie and many other movies. It'll never be taken away from us. And again, for me, this is in my Christmas rotation. And this it works.
Nice.
So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, great one, great pick.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we may only have time for one other Christmas movie.
Okay.
Just depends. Is that something you wanted to do, or do you want to just do a regular movie?
I'd be down to do one more. Okay. I actually have one in mind, actually, that I would like to talk about.
Nice. What are we going to talk about?
So I am thinking we are going to do a Satoshi Kon film next episode, and we're going to do Tokyo Godfathers.
Nice.
This is one that I really enjoy, and we're doing an anime film, so this will be great. Yeah, this one's also pretty simple, but I would say it's his most wholesome film compared to a lot of his more darker stuff like Perfect Blue and even Paprika. Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to talk about Tokyo Godfathers. Nice. I really can't stress enough. Please check this one out, guys. I think this is a really great, underappreciated one that I feel like goes under the radar when you talk about Christmas films. You know? Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking we talk about that one.
Nice. I think that's it, honestly. Short episode, but thank you guys for joining us. It was nice to throw this one in the mix. And we're going to be releasing some of our end of the year videos and stuff, and it's going to be great. We're going to churn them out here pretty quickly. For those of you guys who didn't notice, the Superman trailer review, we actually recorded from home. So Wallied was at his house, I was at my house, And as far as test runs go, I think it worked pretty well. So we kind of have a second option now in terms of recording. And
that'll be
if we
great.
ever want to knock stuff out during the week, I think we'll be able to do it. And I just want to start, like I said, releasing more in a reasonable time frame. Because again, I know I'm just trying to make up for the last month where we weren't doing too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining us, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, happy holidays to you guys. Good day and good night, mates.